Hello everyone, welcome back to the Speculation Station. I am your host, Captain Ketter. Today I have joining me Texas Honey Badger, say hi.
Howdy.
And Bodie, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Thank you. Today we are going to be moving on in our tier list to commanders. We're going to be starting off with the Rebel faction, and then if we have time today, we'll run into Gar. If not, we'll split it up into three groups of Gar and Cis Rebels, and then another group of Imperials. So we're going to do this in the order found on Ryan Kingston. So we're going to start off with Admiral Akbar. We'll just go ahead and read the text for people who don't use this commander or are new to the game. That way you can understand what's going on without having to go look it up. But Admiral Akbar reads, before a friendly ship's attack step. Man, I need to take a breath and just read this properly. Before a friendly ship's attack step, it may choose to attack from only its left and right hull zones this round. If it does, it may add 2 red dice to its attack pool while attacking the ship. He is 38 points. Admiral Akbar is most all of us are relatively new to the game, but Admiral Akbar is kind of a staple of the Rebel faction. It's been around for a long time, and he is the only Rebel commander that really increases firepower. I would say maybe Commander Sato is also on that list, kind of to an extent. But Commander Sato, we'll get to him later. So Admiral Akbar, very good, and he kind of earns that 38 point value. And he turns even the smallest, like CR90s, into something that is absolutely deadly. So there's many ways to fly him. You can put him on big ships and just trundle along and blast things. A few years ago, there was a guy. He's well known in the community, but he hasn't been playing as much recently. He goes by the name of Schmitty, and he had a double potato list where he had assault frigates with gunnery teams and Admiral Akbar, and he was able to bunny hop over them one another and then keep you on one side of his firing arc, which was pretty cool. So that's another way to fly him. But traditionally, when you use Akbar, it's on something like an assault frigate, and then it's partnered with a bunch of CR90s that just get a bunch of extra dice. And that's kind of the most efficient way to fly it. So I have him in S tier. He's one of the best commanders the Rebels have to offer, and he is very efficient whenever they have these cheap ships flying around with tons of red dice flying at you. What about you, Honey Badger? Would you have this guy?
Yeah, I have him in S tier. Funny tidbit about Akbar is he's the only commander in the game that can go on a ship worth less points than him. He is very expensive at 38 points, but he is very worth it at 38 points. I had to fly against him in indoor this past weekend and just demolished my thermal shield just because the dice ad just gets around it. Really good commander. Also want to give a shout out to one of our biggest fans of the podcast, Lark. He unwittingly became a part of this episode because I asked him to rank a few commanders for me, and I don't know if he knew that it was for this episode, but he actually put Akbar at the top of his Rebel list. Since we haven't had him on the podcast, I figured this would be a good way to get his input.
All right, Bodie, what do you got? Where do you have this guy at?
To just pull the pin on my whole tier list, Akbar is the only commander that I have in S tier. From the competitive mind state that I kind of approach these things with, Akbar poses a lot of problems for almost every fleet that's in the meta. Drew kind of touched on it, but the dice ad gets around thermals, and a lot of Akbar ships, whether it be the assault frigate or the MC-30, are very commonly run with Intel Officer, which helps get around ECM. Um, so when you have two potent effects to get around the two most common defensive retrofits, then it kind of makes this perfect storm of a very aggressive fleet that can also do things really versatile. Like it can be very versatile. Akbar plays really well as first player because you can have a power activation like a MC30 and throw like 7 dice at your side. Um, and then he also works really well as second player because you can use objectives to guarantee the 7 or force an engagement. And I think Angry Ewok kind of he has some videos on his YouTube channel about how he does that. He's kind of one of the most commonly known Akbar players. But as you go through these lists, we'll talk about price a lot, and it's weird because every time I take Akbar, I never notice the 38 points. And like anytime, I'm going to mention this on every commander that is 30 points or at least be thinking it, but it's just so expensive, except for Akbar. I, I don't know. His price is 100% worth it. I think he is the best commander at the game. Not by much. My S tier is very close to my A, but I think that just from the pure havoc that he can cause for almost every fleet in the game, uh, I think he deserves S tier too.
All right, not much contention there with Admiral Akbar. Honey Badger, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, who do we have next?
Admiral Radis.
Ooh, Radis. All right, so he is 26 points, Rebel Admiral. Says, before deploying fleets, you may set aside one other friendly ship with a command value 3 or less. At the start of any round, you may deploy that ship at distance 1 to 2 of you. That ship cannot be deployed overlapping squadrons and cannot be the first ship to activate that round. Yeah, I think Radis is really good. I it's hard between S and A tier. I think he might even be an S tier commander. What I like about him is he does something completely different than any other commander in the game with kind of the hyperspace thing. You have other commanders that are defensive or add dice or this and that, affect squads, affect repair. But he's very different. He's if you're not expecting him or if you've never played against him before, it can be a bit of a trick. When I went to Gen Con in 2022, it was my first tournament I played in with Armada, and Iced Becker was running a Radis list, and I didn't know what the tabling rule was. I was flying a Sloan list, and he killed my Quasar and my Venator, and I still had all these squadrons and a Gazanti on the board, and I was like, "What do you mean the game's over? I still have all this stuff." But yeah, he was running a boarding troopers, overload pulse, Radis pain list, and it was fun to see. And I know he's probably the most prolific Radis player that I know. But yeah, I think Radis is really good, and I'm going to give him a soft S.
The other Radis player that I know that has been rather prolific has been Patrick, who goes by Patrick on the Discord. And he was flying this at Worlds. He put Radis, I don't know what Icebecker had, but he put Radis on the CR90 and was just zinging that thing around, dodging arcs, and planting an MC80 Liberty in some very precarious positions for his opponents. And he ended up making it to the final day of Worlds 2 years ago, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, that was a lot of fun to watch, but also nail biting at times because he's just on a CR90. So some stuff can have a really strong potential to take it out, like a double onager, which you don't really see much anymore. but I think he had kind of a deployment advantage with a lot of fighters and a couple flotillas to try and alleviate that to stay out of those arcs. Bodhi, where do you have this guy?
So I really like Radis. In my fleet builder, I have more Radis lists than anybody else. Uh, so much to the point where I think the most recent one that I made, like I just stopped coming up with creative names. I think the most recent one is literally just like yet another Radis list. Um, like Drew said, I really like the unique. No one else does the thing like Radis unless you're playing the one objective hyperspace assault. Um, the problem is that there are a few inherent weaknesses. Uh, the most notable is it like protects a deployment, but it doesn't really give you a deployment. Um, and oftentimes you have to put your commander on a smaller ship, which makes it more of a points pinata type of thing. I do think that the most competitive Radis lists use the Liberty. I've had a little bit of success. I probably need to revisit the archetype, but I know I like Icebecker's Overload Pulse version, but it's more of a skew kind of matchup than something that's going to consistently win games. It's got really good matchups and it's got some really bad matchups. Um, I don't know. I find Radis to be kind of an average commander. He can do some really powerful things, but I don't know. He just feels fine. So I just have him in B tier.
Okay. I really like Admiral Radis. He's a fun guy to play, especially when if you're newer, you can use this guy and then plop a large base ship down with a perfect double arc, and then if you're first player, just if you have profundity, use that first, and then uh, it's kind of theatrical or thematic, I guess. You can bring the MC-75 with profundity, pop out a hammerhead, do a boarding action, ram with Garrel's honor, and then go at it after the next activation with GR70 or the MC-75. So that is just a lot of fun to do. Admiral Radis as a competitive commander is pretty good. I've seen large package we had on a couple weeks ago has a list that is pretty nasty with he has an MC-75 ordnance cruiser, and the amount of black dice that that thing can throw at you is just absolutely insane, actually. Um, but given like it is kind of difficult to avoid this guy, but the way you kind of work against him is you put your squadrons out and then fan them out in such a way that you can't place down a ship where they would most be most advantageous for the opponent. So that is legal. You can do that. The other thing is the profundity can move squadrons aside. So that'll work for the Raditz, but not for the profundity. So just FYI for people out there. Um,
What would be your advice for our listeners that don't play squadrons?
play around obstacles and then create. So you want to have obstacles in such a way, or fly around them in such a way that they would have to plop him down on the other side of the obstacle or be obstructed, and then on the other side where your ship is, have a second ship with a firing arc that's kind of overlapping. So they're forced to either try to get all the way around you, which is going to take quite a bit of the game, and hopefully you can speed away. Um, but I think you have to use obstacles to your advantage if you're going against Radis. A lot of times, though, Radis will be like on an MC or a CR90, and so they'll be doing like a large flanking action and then try to get around you. So uh, the other thing you can do is have kind of like a crosshatch pattern of your flying, so that no matter which direction the CR90 goes, you can keep your front arc, if that's your main arc, faced at where the CR90 is going to plop the guy down. and then hopefully with the leading ship you can turn hard enough that you can uh, keep it in the fight. But yeah, my first suggestion would be squadron. Second suggestion is use the obstacles if you can to your advantage and protect yourself. But yeah, I I like this guy, but I don't see him as an S tier commander. I'd rather see him as an A tier commander. I think he's a lot of fun to fly. If you haven't flown him, I would definitely say give it a shot just for the kicks and giggles. Um, he's not bad. He's a good commander to use, but um, not necessarily S tier. I would say. I really want to come up with like a better reason as to why, but the if I had to think of something, let's say it would probably be that before he flies in, you're at a disadvantage, and then when he does fly in, it's usually a large base ship that you're going to spend a lot of points into. And if you are going up against something like MSU, sometimes that can split your fire, and so it kind of is not as good at MSU, I would say. You could stick gunnery team on the Liberty, but usually you want to fly this guy into the side of a large ship that you can take down and then trade anything small you lost and recover that with all the points you're going to get by killing the large base ship. So A tier for me.
I think just because you said you weren't really sure what to say, but I really think it's just his matchup spread. And there's the slight issue where the ship that you drop in cannot be the first to activate. And if you're doing like the whole profundity gimmick, then you just activate the small ship that you dropped in. But the issue is, I mean, if I have a bunch of squadrons, I can stop you from putting it where you want to put it. But if I don't have a lot of squadrons, then you're going to put it where you want to put it, and you're going to blow stuff up. And there's more instances of that that really define Radis's matchup spread that stop him from being S tier, in my opinion.
Okay, so
We can meet at A tier. I feel like that's fair.
okay, good. All right, Bodhi, you want to take the next one?
Sure. So next up we have Commander Sato. He's 27 points. And he says, while a friendly ship is attacking a ship at distance 1 of a friendly squadron, before rolling attack dice, the attacker may replace up to 2 dice in its attack pool with an equal number of dice of any color or colors. Sato's one of the most weird and unique commanders in the game. He is the only mention of replacing dice, which lets you get around range restrictions in a strange way. So if I'm at long range of you and I have a squadron nearby, I can turn my red dice into black dice and throw those black dice at long range. I've flown Sato exactly one time. It was meant to be just like a kind of memey casual list. And Sato is pretty fun. Like it feels fun to throw those black dice at long range, but there are a lot of issues with his ability, specifically having to have a spotter squadron at so close to a ship. If your opponent has a lot of squadrons or a lot of fast ships, then it can be difficult to pin something down. Ironically, I really like Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon with Sato because he gets to go before your ship. I don't know, it's just kind of a fun little gimmicky thing. Unfortunately, though, I think that the restrictions that you have to play around for not that great of an additional effect really bring Sato down. Black dice are definitely more powerful than red dice. There's so much to keep red dice consistent, especially in the Rebel faction, that it really feels like a swing and a miss. That I'm not sure if he would be better in a different faction, but with TRC 90s and Akbar and assault frigates and like all of these things that just want to be at long range and are happy throwing red dice anyway, feels kind of weird that Sato doesn't do a whole lot to benefit those strategies. So unfortunately, I've got to put him all the way down in D tier.
All right. Yeah, D tier is where he belongs, honestly. I wouldn't put him in F tier because he's not something that is completely dysfunctional. He's just something that doesn't have the uh the things you have to the qualifying conditions in order to make him work are just kind of difficult to make them all happen at once. And then you have to roll the crits if you are trying to do this. So usually you're doing this in order to like throw black dice at long range. So that's nice sometimes when you're using the hammerheads or the MC30s, but a lot of times it's not that efficient just to switch out a couple dice, and it kind of changes the way you would play the game. Instead of flying the MC30 at close range, you end up just like hiding with that guy, and then it it's not, I don't know, it doesn't really make it super functional. So something I have developed, I have not flown it or tested it, but my idea was you kind of take this on a ship that needs dice mitigation, and so you can actually, instead of working on dice mitigation to a greater extent, you can kind of just switch the dice out. And then when you have, let's say, more black dice, or if you want to lean into blue dice, then you can add in more blue dice and get HIEs at a long range, which is good. Which, what I'm thinking of in particular is probably the MC75 or the Liberty. But I uh, I don't have a very high opinion of this guy. I'm pretty sure he came out with the Phoenix Nest, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, the Pelta, the Rebel Pelta, and the idea kind of with the thematic deal is that you use A wings, you sling the A wings in, and then the ships would fire and pour damage on. But in reality, what happens is you go up against somebody with evades, or maybe you don't, but you run like hammerheads or something with black dice. You get discaps so you can swap out your blue or red dice for blacks. And then you throw black dice at long range, try to get your APTs to go off your ACMs, and all too often you don't roll that crit. And then the thing that you really want to have is May the Hero that's half the amount of points that she is. And that squadron is just dysfunctional. It sucks. Commander Sato also is a little bit dysfunctional. It's not great. If you take him for dice mitigation instead of doing special crits at long range, then I think it's okay. But a lot of times, there's a lot of other stuff you can take instead of that, just like LTTs or uh, veteran gunners. Although rebels don't really take that; they'll take Kickin and Sholin. So there's a lot of other things you can take that aren't Commander Sato that make you feel a lot better about your results than what he can do for you. So I also have him in D tier. What about you, Badger?
All right, hear me out, guys. This is where it gets spicy. Sato is my favorite Rebel commander. I think he's the first Rebel commander I ever played when I started playing the game. I took him at an 800 point not monster truck, sector fleet game at LSO last year. Recently, we had an online tournament where there were alternate rules, and basically what he could do was he could cancel two dice and replace them. So you got his ability after you rolled. And so I was like, yep, I'm taking Sato. So much fun. I also have him in D tier. So even though I mean, I really like this guy. I wish he was better. I don't know how to make him better, especially make him better without making him broken. Um, I think he's at the power level that I wish all commanders were. I think he's very balanced, but especially in the rebel faction, they're just stacked with commanders. You, you know, you're just not going to play him. He's I hate to say it because he's my favorite commander in the game.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here. Uh, I don't know what you would do to really improve him other than reduce him down to 20 points, probably is a good start. And then the squadron thing, maybe I don't know, at distance, maybe at distance 1 to 2 instead of distance one.
Yeah, or maybe give them a second ability. Like, think about other squadron commanders, Sloane, Yularen, Plo. They all have two abilities, and he's only got the one. And so I think it's kind of counterintuitive because you want to invest in ships that can do damage, and then you want to invest in squads that can help your ships do more damage by switching out for black dice. But by doing so, you're able to invest in less ships for higher damage. So it's kind of a tautology, and I wish that he just had something that would help out. I mean, maybe even uh, giving his squads a little bit resistance to flak or something, like some kind of dodge but against flak, or maybe just giving a squadrons dodge so they live longer. Something like that, I think would help.
I do like that. My other idea was when we were talking about this is they re-roll their accuracies instead of their crits, kind of like in who is it in Sloan, where they can re-roll their crits. They can instead in this guy you could re-roll accuracies. That way, a bomber, blue dice bomber, could get another hit. All right. Well, I think we're in agreement right there. D tier. Up next, we have Garm Abel Iblis. He's 25 points. He reads after deploying fleets. Place 2 non-consecutive round tokens on this card. At the start of the ship phase during each round matching one of those tokens, each friendly ship may gain a number of command tokens equal to that command value, or its command value, excuse me. This guy is like CommsNet for everybody in the fleet. I personally like him quite a bit, but making him work is something you've got to practice with because you've got to know at the beginning of the game when am I going to need tokens. I'm going to take tokens to begin the game. I'm going to spend them, and then when will I need them again? And so that it usually ends up being rounds like either turns 3 and 5 or 4 and 6, kind of like Tag. If you guys have ever played Tag, we'll talk about him later in another podcast. But this guy is actually kind of like a boost, not really not something that is game changing as Admiral Akbar with 2 red dice. This guy just takes whatever you're doing and makes it better. He's also uh, very, I'd say very good. He's decent at raid counters. So Count Dooku used to be really prevalent whenever that was a thing, and uh, also TF. TF was the other guy. So when CIS came out and those commanders were rather prevalent, you were getting raided nonstop, and so this guy was able to give you the tokens to get around that and use your commands as much as you would like, I guess. Not, I mean, that's not quite right, but you get to use them when you needed them. So I like this guy. He does a little bit of everything because he gives you the tokens. Um, if you couple him with things like engine techs, you can make your MC30 or MC80 Liberties like do their engine techs while you're doing other things, or you can go from speed 1 to speed 4 effectively with the MC80 Liberty, which is pretty wild. And then if you couple it with Exodus Fleet, MC Exodus Fleet, you can essentially get what is a engineering dial while you're getting another dial at the same time. So he's kind of nice. You can also couple that with like Redemption on the Nebulon, which is very rarely seen. Um, and then the other thing I like to do with him and then with Leia as well is if you take an expanded hangar GR75, you've got an extremely cheap fighter platform that you can just send 4 squadrons out with, which is kind of insane for a ship so small and with for so few points. So I have him, I think, in B tier. He's not really very competitive, but that's just because I think probably with point defense ion cannons, the larges become more defensible. But in the past, they haven't quite as been. I'm thinking back, and I think that Schmidt's list for I think he went to Worlds, but I'm pretty sure he had Garm, not Akbar. Now that I think of it, I could be very wrong. I need to correct the record after the podcast. Honey Badger, where do you have this guy at?
So I have seen Garm played one full time in my illustrious Armada, and that was I played an online game against a random opponent. I believe he was Russian. I don't remember his online name or anything. And that's the only experience I've ever had playing with or against Garm. He's D tier. I mean, he's just. If you look at his ability, it seems kind of cool. Yeah, sure. What's the CIS Shumai from the CIS has the same kind of place 2 non-consecutive tokens, and you just kind of hope that the game is going to go the way that you want it to, but then you reveal those tokens, and so it's not like you can bluff which rounds you're going to engage in. Your opponent can just kind of do too much to stop what you're going to do. If you're going to load up on tokens on turn 2 and 4, they can just sit back and not engage. Or I don't know. I don't think Garm's very good. I have him in D tier, and that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Bodie, let's hear your take.
Um, I really, I really like Garm. I think he's kind of just like a fun tier admiral. I've flown him for 2 games in a casual 2-round tournament. Uh, when I was taking my tour of all of the commanders in the game, getting at least 1 game in with all of them, I decided to. Garm was actually the last. I thought that I hated the guy. It's like, this ability is useless. Just take comps now. So I brought 3 Rebel Peltas and Bright Hope and a shit ton of B-Wings, and I had a blast. And both games that I played with Phil Fleet, I got a 10-1, and that totally skews my opinion of him. So I kind of have a definition for all of my tiers. S is like the best in the game, and then A tiers are like, your highly competitive things. B tier is where a lot of my stuff falls. C tier is like a little weak, and D tier is unplayed, and F tier is unplayable, kind of as we discussed in our squadron pods. And I think Garm just kind of falls into C tier. His ability is fine. I liked it with the Peltas because I could power up 3 fleet commands in 1 turn. But that was just kind of the gimmick of the list. And he really doesn't do a whole lot other than that. Just kind of consistency. He doesn't feel nearly as strong as the double dial commanders, and he's just kind of okay. But I think that there is a place in the game for him if you're willing to meme just a little bit. So I think he's C tier.
You said you had him in a Pelta list. How many Peltas was it?
3.
3 Peltas and like a GR75?
Yeah, 3 Peltas and a Bright Hope.
Okay.
I'll send you the list. It's spicy.
All right. Should we compromise at Charlie here? I think we will.
Where did you have
We'll
him?
put him in C tier.
I have him in C.
I had him in B tier, but that's
B.
because I like him.
Oof.
And I kind of
All
agree
right.
with C is fun tier, right?
Yeah, C's just like your kind of average, like feels a little underpowered, but can bring some good games.
Okay. Honey Badger, you want to take the next CI?
We got Kraken.
Right?
General Kraken. He is the exact same number of points as the last commander that I did, Radis, 26. While a friendly, small, or medium ship is defending against a ship, if the defender is at speed 3 or higher, the attack is treated as obstructed. Oh my gosh, he is annoying. He is the defensive counterpart to Akbar. So whereas Akbar likes those little small ships that stay at long range and add uh, a gross amount of red dice at long range evades. Kraken's the opposite. He likes to stay at long range with those evades and those small ships, going speed 3, running circles around you, and your attacks are obstructed. So they don't even have to spin an evade to cancel a die. You're just automatically canceling a die. He's so annoying. Um, I have him in S tier. I mean, he's really good. It makes those rebel ships hard to kill, and that's a lot of plink damage that comes at you. Um, yeah, you, yeah, that's it. S tier, Kraken.
I so kind of what spurred on some of this discussion. We've been talking about doing a commander tier list for a while, and the other day I dug up the tier list that I made a year ago after Ion Radio's podcast where uh, they did this ranking. Um, and I think I had crack. Let me pull it up real fast. Um, I had Kraken in A. And a few things have changed since that list. Definitely my opinions and kind of the meta as a whole. Um, but I think it's just a little less powerful than Akbar. And, there are some matchups that having Kraken will completely skew. Uh, Matt or Fox Omega played Kraken Rogue List at LSO, and there was a SSD that oh man, I totally am blanking on his name, but or Ben's SSD list was terrorized in the top tables. He had insanely good wins, but he wasn't able to one shot crack in the CR90s because there just wasn't a way to do it with that extra die removed. Um, so I think there is a place for Kraken. It's just right now, like from a purely competitive stance, I would rather have Akbar 100% of the time, and Kraken gets shoved all the way down to B tier.
Interesting. Okay. I General Kraken used to be, I think, A tier, and then that was while Ramadi was out, and Ramadi was kind of the hard counter to Kraken because unless you were, it was a weird interaction where I think unless you were obstructed by an actual obstacle and not the card effect, then uh like it didn't take place. So like, let's see, I'm like blanking on how this works, but a lot of times when you were flying Kraken, it was basically like a wasted 26 points versus Ramadi, and a lot of times Ramadi would still get his dice because he would purposely use the obstacles to block everything. In that case, that I think Kraken at the time was like A tier. It was kind of difficult to use. But now I kind of agree with Honey Badger. I think he's S tier. I think against uh, a lot of different fleets, losing that extra die, and if you fly the smalls correctly at long range and then close in, then I think you're going to be able to use those evades really well to your advantage. And losing one dice from every attack is actually pretty substantial. So if you think about it, like let's say two ISDs have gunnery team and they can lock down a couple and there's four shots in a round, and that's four dice that you didn't have to do anything. And on the flip side, that's plus four dice against the enemy if uh like there was no obstruction. So it kind of skews the game towards the rebel faction players like advantage. And the only disadvantage really is that you have to fly at like speed 3 or 4 in order to make it work. But a lot of times when you're flying the rebel faction, you're going to want to be going speed 3 or 4 to try and outflank the opponent and dodge arcs. So the best list for General Kraken, I don't know what that is, but I would love to see it with like a CR90 with engine techs, who's like streaking at speed 5 around the corner to get into the rear arc, or a CR90B with HIEs doing that. That's I don't know how many people know, but my current build of the CR90Bs is my favorite with reinforced blast doors, HIEs, and medical teams, and it makes them extremely survivable. And that's without any of these commanders like Mon Mothma or General Kraken. So I'm just using Kirsta in those lists, and they do just fine and are very tanky, difficult to take out. So adding Kraken and then that build into a CR90, I can just see those things really popping off. So I have them at S tier as well.
One thing that goes along with what you were saying that you didn't mention was Ramadi was nerfed. He got an 8 point increase from 20 to 28 points. And so if he is the counter to Kraken and Kraken's counter gets nerfed, then, it makes Kraken better. Also, with the speed 3, you're flying around ships, like you were saying, you're flanking, you're getting out of that main arc and getting into the side or wherever. And I think that that's very powerful as well.
Yes, yeah, I didn't finish my thought. The nerf to Ramadi became a huge boost to Kraken, and so while he was A tier before that, I think he is definitely in the S tier now. So, Bodhi, do you want to concede and into S tier, or should I use my poll to pull him up?
Well, it's 2
I'm
on
gonna make
1. You
you
don't
use
even
your
have
poll.
you don't have to use your pull. It's 2 on 1.
Well, he was in B tier.
I'm in B.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm pretty firm on. I could maybe see him in the mix with my A tiers, but I don't know. It's just the fleet that you want to be flying with Kraken. I feel like there's another commander that we're going to be talking about later that does it all better. And I don't know. I see the strength. I know he's good. I'm just not seeing him in S. Maybe that's just because.
He's better than Mon Mothma. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, he's definitely better than Mon Mothma.
Okay, maybe Riken is what you're thinking of. I don't know where we're
Yeah,
going with this.
that's who I was thinking
yeah,
was Riken.
yeah. But I don't know. I think that it's a hard world for MSU right now. There's so many big punchy things. Like the SSD is good, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, when I was giving the example earlier about Ben's SSD at LSO, uh, Fox's CR90s were surviving, but I don't think he won those games. Like he made it into not big losses, but it's still a really hard matchup. Um, I don't know. I mean, if he's got to go in S, I know that you guys are a little more lenient on things than I am. So if that's where he's going, that's where he's going. But let the record know.
Also, Lark did say he was a top tier admiral, and he could see an argument for him being in S tier. So Lark agrees.
So there. Okay. All right. Well, just for our listeners, if you have a different opinion, you're welcome to go to the tier list as well and make a list of your own and then share it with everybody so that we can have some more conversation about the commanders, where they stack, and where we think they should be nerfed or buffed. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think to that point, Bodhi, I think each commander does have its own checks and balances within the other fleets out there. So Kraken's like Achilles is the SSD with the double accuracy that can just blast things out of into oblivion. And
That's
MSU in
just
general.
yeah, MSU in general. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, we don't need to discuss any further. I've said all the points that I have really, and
Okay.
I'm not going to be upset with this. I just
All
don't
right.
agree with it.
All right. You want to take away the next one?
I would love to. All right, so next up we've got General Dodonna. He's 20 points. Before an enemy ship is dealt a face-up damage card, look at the top 4 cards of the damage deck, place 1 on top of the deck, and discard the others. So Dodonna was the first Rebel commander. Comes in the core set with Tarkin in the Empire. and he still exists in the game today, I guess. Uh, I'm not really impressed with Dodonna. A lot of the time, his text is blank. Osmo this year, I was in a teams tournament with Dodonna, and we used his ability exactly one time in two 800-point games. Um, Actually, no, it was a little bit more than that. Exactly three times, I think. But those rounds we had an SSD too, so there was a lot of hull being dealt. A lot of what Dodonna tries to do gets countered by contain, which a lot of ships have. And sure, you can bring like APT or XX9 or some of these weird niche upgrades, but then you're playing those over better upgrades, uh, like XREX or LTT. Um, I think his ability is definitely fun. I mean, it can probably single-handedly win games if you get like a projector misaligned or something silly like that. But you're literally just building around RNG that has a chance to not even do anything. The biggest benefit to this is that he's 20 points, and as of a year ago, with Agate getting nerfed to 25, he's the cheapest commander in the faction by a noticeable amount. Um, I do think that there's not a whole lot of times when you wouldn't be willing to just pay the extra 5 for Agate or the extra 6 for Kraken or Radis or whatever you're trying to do. But if you are really tight on points, I guess you can play Dodonna and you'll probably have some fun doing that. Um, Unfortunately, though, when it comes to actually having a powerful ability, he just doesn't. And he's got to go in D tier for me.
D tier. I feel like that's rather harsh for our
It is
boy.
rather harsh. I sent the tier list to my team from the world, like the team championship at Worlds, uh, and I was like, maybe Dodonna should be C tier, and then everyone was like, no, he's D. So I stay firm, Dodonna and D.
Interesting. All right. For me, General Dodonna is the reason you take him mostly is for the points. Um, he is one of the two commanders out there that kind of benefits squadrons and ships alike for the rebels. So General Riken being the other one, and General Dodonna here. If you've got bombers, they can activate the crit effect as well. The other thing you can do is if they land on an asteroid, or if there's another reason they're taking a face up, like APTs, then the crit effect takes place, and then you can search through the cards. My favorite way to fly this guy is to have XX9s, and then as soon as you get a crit through, it's actually quite devastating to smalls. Big ships as well, obviously, but for smalls, you get that crit to go through, and a lot of times there'll be like either two crits or a double and a crit, and so they'll try to evade the double, and then the crit will stay. Um, so it kind of helps a little bit against smalls, but you kind of want to be hunting for that uh, structural damage or something to try and secure the kill on those. He has a little bit of synergy with Luke as well, who can pierce shields and then get a crit through. Um, so he has some synergies out there, but the reason you would take him is because you've got so many points that you want to take a cheap commander, but he's just not very good. Um, I kind of agree with Bodhi. Like, if you want to take a cheap commander, you kind of just buckle up and take the 5 points for Kirsta Gate. You shell out that 5 points, and then you've got something that's kind of tanky that can survive, and then you feel a little bit better about going against different matchups. I don't think there is a matchup really where you want to be like, oh, Dodonna would be perfect for me to fly up against this fleet, or uh, yeah, there's not really archetypes built around Dodonna or versus Dodonna. It's not something that's thought of in the meta. So if you take it, you're probably going to be one of the odd people out. Um, Usually a Dodonna fleet will have between like 80 to 134 points in squadrons. Usually it's a meaningful amount where they're trying to get the bombers to do something. So if you have they're counting on you either winning the squad war or uh, tying you up so that their ships can do their crits. For me, I think General Donna is kind of in fun tier. He's not really competitive. I've seen it be used, um, but I don't think he. I think other commanders would have been more uh, competitive in this slot rather than him, in my opinion. So I have him in C tier. What about you, Badger?
Real fast. I have two words
Okay,
left for Dodonna, and that's win more.
that's what. Sorry.
Win more. He doesn't do anything unless you're already winning the game.
Right. True. Badger.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say that. Um, he's he's D tier, or no, I have him as C tier. Sorry, C tier. It's fun. It's niche. Not very many other effects like that in the game. Or there's no other effects, no other commander effects like that in the game. I like it. And he's cheap. He's 20 points. Um, he also works with minefields and a few other objectives that deal face up damage. But yeah, he he's just not great. He works well with Luke, APTs, Ezra, if you can throw an asteroid. But I feel like commanders um, should supplement your list and not your list should supplement your commander. And he's definitely one of those commanders that you have to make the list work for him um, as opposed to the other way around. Uh, it's a cool ability. It's very impactful because there are a lot of times where, um, one crit can be absolutely devastating. And then there are a lot of times where a crit can do absolutely nothing. And so you avoid those situations where your crit does nothing. And sometimes you quadruple your chances to get that very devastating crit, like projector misaligned on an APT or something. But yeah, my main point was what Bodhi said last of he gives you an edge if you're already winning. You don't necessarily need help killing a ship who's taking face up damage because by then their shields are gone, their contain's gone, uh, everything is going wrong for that player.
All right, so we got two C's and one D tier.
I won't fight. I am like I said originally. I was like maybe D is too harsh.
What is
Definitely
your
wouldn't
what is your opinion of D tier? What was your comment?
uh, unplayed, but I guess there are people who play Dodonna, and if C tier is fun tier, I think that that would be a fitting place for him. Uh,
No
um,
way we could put Garm in C tier and Dodonna in D. Come on.
I think Garm actually does something, but I I I I think that Dodonna and C is fine. Like he will let you do some fun things. I just would not bring him to a tournament.
Yeah, I can agree with that. There's a lot of synergy with him actually. Now that I'm thinking of it, there's also you can use Ezra to sling asteroids in front of people, and then you can use Dodonna's Pride to get the crits to go off again. So there's a lot of stuff out there that can like synergize with Dodonna, but usually people are planning ahead and they'll like plan an engineering dial, and then whatever was the effect is kind of just gone. So it's just kind of an inconvenience mostly for the other player until you start winning, and then like you said, you just win more. Okay, up next we have General Draven. I'll be reading this guy. He is 28 points. He has seen an errata by AMG after his first release in was it Rapid Reinforcements 1? I think
2.
so.
Yeah, two.
2? Okay. At the end of the command phase, you may look at all command dials assigned to one enemy ship. Then you may place two command tokens, each of a different type, on this card. After an enemy ship resolves a command, you may discard a matching command token from this card. From this card, excuse me. If you do, that enemy ship gains one matching raid token. So that's a lot of text, but it's a lot of text kind of for nothing really. Um, when he was released, I was really excited that there was a Draven commander. I flew him in a tournament here in Dallas. I think I took second place, and I used his ability I think a couple times with the old unerrated version, and it didn't really feel that great. I'll be honest. Um, the uh, the ability to look at enemy ships' command dials basically means I can look and see, I can plan ahead, see what you're going to do, and then whenever you do it a second time, then I can try and prevent you from doing that. But when you do that, then the enemy player usually will just like bank a token, and then when you want to raid it, then they'll just cancel it, and then they get their command dial anyway. So effectively, what it does is just kind of negates their tokens or makes them generate tokens to take away your raids. And the other effect is that it's an anti-cheat. Um, there isn't very much cheating in Armada, but I have an anecdote where one of my friends was playing and he had slicer tools. And he slicer tooled someone's ship into like an engineering from a squadron or something. And then the next round, the guy had a squadron, so he was like, "Hey, hold up, wait a minute, that was an engineering. What is that doing?" And so they resolved the issue and just switched it back to engineering. But I don't know if that was necessarily cheating or if the guy was just uh, not mindful about his dials being set in the proper order when he set them back down. Anyway, it's a little bit of an anti-cheat. Is it useful in Armada? Not really. Kind of in Armada, the way you play the game, at least to me, is you kind of expect the person to do exactly what they should. Like, what is the best opportunity? What is the best thing for them to do in this time? And then the way it unravels, I mean, uh, you're kind of planning ahead for that. And so if it comes up wrong and they're misplaying, then that's a misplay, and that's something you can take advantage of. But usually you're kind of expecting the other player to play the correct command dial. So uh, I don't feel like it's an enormous. I do. I mean, I'm trying to like dance around this a little bit, but let's see. It's kind of a gentleman's agreement that the dials are not being changed, and to like some extent, you can watch other people set their dials and try to keep track of them. And I'll be honest, I've seen. I don't know. It's not really something I want to get into, or I want to like like talk about and bring up a whole conversation of. I just rather keep it on the DL because I'd want cheating to be at a minimum. Anyway, this guy sucks. You don't really get to use him or his abilities, and he just kind of it's like pillow fight. He's a pillow fight commander. You're going to a gunfight. You're bringing pillows. He's at F tier. Badger, what do you have to say about this guy?
This guy is so bad and so boring that even while trying to talk about him, you completely went on a tangent and started talking about cheating instead, just because this dude has no substance that can hold your attention, except for a lot of text on his card. Um, I definitely have him in F tier. Um, I think the only person who likes this guy is Obi-Wan Kenobi because that makes him no longer the worst admiral in the game or the worst commander in the game. So he's Obi-Wan's Mississippi. Lark said that he was the worst rebel commander in F tier, but if you wanted a less obvious answer, he gave a different commander as the worst rebel commander, and that's just another testament to how bad this guy really is. It's just the obvious choice. F tier.
All right. So, yes, Graven is the worst commander in the game. Um, I don't even think that it's close. Uh, but my experience with this guy, so um, I thought that the first version was honestly kind of interesting. Um, I won't go too much into that because that's not how he exists in the game anymore. But I thought that it opened a space that was like a weird kind of control-esque type of thing. And the new version, in attempt to AMG's attempt to like brush over the misunderstandings people had with version one, uh, just completely flubbed it. You've got Izard as a commander, and that's the best part. He really just sucks, other than like being able to look at dials, and there's not much utility in that anyway. Uh, I played him in Hoth, which is a 4 round tournament. I did really bad. I got like I won one game, and it was like a 6. Every single round, he got countered by something, whether it be I played against both Imperial and Republic Tarkin, so obviously just completely countered. And then I played against a guy with ComsNet that countered it for 2 points, and then just taking tokens means that Garm can't do shit. Um, Gen, which I know I butchered that name, but got like the rabbit thing on Discord. He told me in our game that I'd be better off with Kraken in my list, even though my list was a MC75, 2 Peltas, and a GR75. So it only would help the GR75, but I'd be better off with Kraken because I would get 2 points a bit. I have heard Draven described as wiping your ass before you shit because you put the raid on them after they've already spent the command. So he does nothing for alpha strikes, and he's so bad. I could go on all day. I do think, and this is a slight side note. We had discussed doing some discussion about Endor, placing some bets, and I think next time we have something to bet on, the loser should have to buy a foil Draven with their tickets at Worlds. Assuming the prices are the same, because I doubt AMG will change anything. All right, that's it for Draven.
Yeah, I have to admit, yes, I kind of went on a rant about stuff, but um, almost fell asleep reading them as well. I did. I feel like the first version could have been tweaked, and then it would have been functional. And then they went to change it to try and fix it, and it didn't do anything to make it better. But F tier for this guy. No bueno. Who's up next? We got Badger reading General Magine.
General Madine. 30 points. When a friendly ship resolves a navigate command, if it spent a navigate dial, it may increase one additional yaw value by 1. If it spent a navigate token, either change its speed or increase one yaw value by 1. Um, yeah, he's pretty bad. So this was Lark's less obvious answer for the worst rebel commander. I've got him in D tier because at least he does something. For 30 points, like it's not good enough. Rebels have really good nav charts. Who are you? What list are you flying? Like this be good in the Imperial faction, or he'd probably be good in the Gar faction where they're just flying bricks. But I mean, he just does not do well with the rebels who like are probably already either just navving or don't need to nav because their native charts are fine. So D tier. Oh, this is a guy who he also appreciates General Draven because he's no longer the worst rebel commander in the game.
Oh, that's fair.
I know what you're talking about. Medellin is one of the most fun, like, things that you can play in Armada. You definitely don't need all of the extra clicks of nav that he gives you, and he's quite expensive for providing them. But he's kind of the closest thing that Rebels have to a double dial commander. And if you ever want to just throw a shit ton of MC30s on the table, their speed 4 is pretty bad natively. But with a nav dial and Maydeen, you can put them wherever you want. And it is hilariously fun. You can get from in the front arc of an ISD to almost in the back, and just wiggle it however you'd like. Uh, there's definitely better commanders, but I don't think he's terrible. I think he's C tier just because fun, but I could see the argument for D, I guess. It doesn't really provide a lot for the most maneuverable faction in the game.
I am my thoughts are along the same lines. Like he came out, I think, with the Liberty expansion, and he does make Liberties more functional with the ability to be maneuverable. But what I've found is that if you fly Liberties at like speed 1 and then use engine techs and a nav, you can kind of get wherever you need to go, and you don't need to like pull a 90-degree turn or operate like a Nebulon at speed 3 or something like that. He may be decent in the area where you can do like a speed 2 shimmy with a 2 click at the 1 and then 1 click backwards at the 2 in order to like stay at speed 2 but uh not go too far and like position your arc correctly. Sometimes people will do that with ISDs. And the reason why that may be useful is they're a large base and then they can dodge obstacles, but also they're only 8 hull for a large base and they don't want to be ramming too much. They want to be dealing damage through their shooting. Whereas an ISD can take a ram or two and trundle along. Um, I feel like General Maydeen is the epitome of fun tier, but he doesn't even get played for fun. So, okay, I've seen him a couple times. He does make the MC30s useful so they don't have to just dart straight in at something. They can kind of do the JJ turn and just yoink in. Uh, not to such a great extent because there's 2 clicks with the JJ turn, with one with this guy if you use him. But you could also throw in the token if you plan ahead. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I think this guy's a D tier. I think he can be improved though. He has room for improvement. Um, and I think he has more potential than Sato currently.
And I keep being the odd one out. You guys are getting along today.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I've put someone above though.
Have
Do you
better opinions.
All right.
Got
So
him.
is D tier okay, or do you want to pull?
uh, I don't know. I think that this is kind of like I would rather have Nadine than Dodonna.
Okay. Well,
Um,
we've only got 4 commanders after this, so if you feel like this is the time to use a pull, then
I mean, I definitely don't care that much, and I mean, it's
He
between
is
C and D.
50% more points than Dodonna.
This is true. This is true.
yeah, that
But
is not nothing.
I know. I mean, if you think that he's the epitome of fun tier, and C tier is fun tier.
Okay, I'll side with you. That's okay. Uh, Up next we have General Riken, and that will be Bodhi reading that guy.
All right. General Redkin is 34 points. He says, once per round, when a friendly ship or friendly unique squadron is destroyed, if it remains in the play it remains in the play area and is treated as if it was not destroyed until the end of the status phase. The text on Ryan Kingston is really small. But man, Riken is so good, and he's been nerfed like 2 or 3 times already. There was a period of time long before I played this game where he did not have the limitation of once per round, and I think he was also cheaper too. And he was like the only competitive fleet. This was also before the engine techs had the line that exhaust them if you ram, so you could like take CR90Bs with engine techs and then ram, then engine tech ram, and then it's gonna die, but it's gonna stay there and force you to ram. Which sounds hilarious, but super toxic. I think Riken is he defines an archetype, uh, and you can substitute him for someone a little bit cheaper like Kraken. Um, but the whole like MSU rogues archetype, I feel like is just best with Raken. Um, Black Admiral's classic list with 4 CR90s with PRC and random officer. He's got these guys have command or Squadron Command 1, and he's got 8R talent on one of them. But then like all of these rogues and proximity mines, it's a super powerful list. I played against a version with Kraken uh, at Worlds this year, and it's really good. Um, what Riken brings to the table is allowing you to do really annoying things in the squad game, uh, especially when it comes to some of the non-ace uniques. Like Green Squadron is really good because you've got to kill Green Squadron because it's got bomber, or it's going to go in and ruin your shields. But if you go in and kill it, then it's just going to stay there and go into your shields or tie your squadrons down. He's really annoying with all of the A-Wings, actually, because he forces you to deal with them for longer than you should have to. And then, of course, there's like the fringe case where one of your ships gets blown up before it can do its thing, and it just stays there and does its thing anyway. 34 points is a little bit, it's a bit pricey, especially. I do think Akbar is better for MSU, but the things that Riken brings to the table are incredibly strong. And in a game that's all about attrition, like his ability to neuter some of the attrition aspect every turn of the game, it supercharges the squad game and does quite a bit for ships too. So I think that overall, like the time for MSU is the time when people least expect it, I guess. Right now, it's just not quite as good. So I think he's B tier, but that was with the caveat of Kraken also being in B tier. So I think if Kraken is in A tier, then I'm going to change to put Riken in A tier as well.
Okay. I have not seen Riken played that much. Um, I think when I started playing the game, he had maybe just gotten his errata the second time, and yeah, so I'd played against him a couple times, and then I honestly had never seen him again. But like you said, he's really good with the generic, I don't know, the non-ace uniques from the Rebel squadrons, and especially with like Green Squadron, we can jump at speed 5, and then you've got Gold Squadron, which is going to take you forever to kill, um, and then it's still going to sit there. Um, he's really effective, but the thing is, you have to use it on a squadron or a ship until the end of the round. The nice thing to do with him is like put him on in a fleet with like a hammerhead or something, and then your hammerhead with boarding crew, whatever the boarding crew is, can go off for sure. And then you can also get a crit in with Garrel's Honor or something, and then you can force him to shoot at that, either that or like suffer the damage for another turn. So it kind of forces your opponent to target what you want, and then you can kind of play around in the fringes with your other ships. He's not as good on large ships because you really don't want the large ships to stay, or excuse me, you don't want the large ships to die because it's so many points. So you kind of want to have some MSU that is expendable. So you can trade maybe 2 small ships for a large, and then uh, the ability to stick around with your uniques helps you win the squad war by isolating the enemy squads in different areas, which also can help with flacking as well, which it doesn't really get mentioned too much. Um, like flacking is a part of the game that I think people need to look at a little bit more heavier. Like people do it with ruthless strategists, but having a double dice ship that can just flak through ships or through obstacles can be pretty big, especially with Torn far around. It's one of my favorite things to do is just flack with Torn. Um, he is expensive, not on the same level as Admiral Akbar, still effective, but doesn't get played. So good, but doesn't get played. I feel like belongs more like in B tier. Um, he I don't know. He's just not really there for me. I don't really think he's going to be an A tier guy. Like Kraken, I can see being taken and is pretty versatile and played. General Riken, I don't see out there. What do you think, Badger?
Yeah, I think he's A tier. He's really good. Um, the best squad screen and light squad screen in the game is 24 points. Gold Squadron, Green Squadron, and Riken. Uh, I I think the way to get around Riken is if you can somehow fake out your opponent. Like you kill something and make them use Riken's ability early, and then they don't have the Riken ability for when you kill your real target. I've been able to do that fighting against Riken. But outside of that, I mean, he's a really solid commander. He's also kind of how you should nerf a commander is, increase his points, tweak his ability a little bit. Don't increase his points and then completely change his ability. But we'll get to that later. But yeah, I've got him in A tier.
Okay, I will concede, and we can put him in A tier. He is good, but I just don't see him out there. Like the last time I saw him played was at least over 2 years ago, I think.
I think you're looking in the wrong places. He had a top 8 at Worlds in 2023, and then he was in the uh he's in like the top 20 at Worlds this year. I think it was like closer to the top 15.
Okay.
He was definitely in top 15. Um, but didn't Drew? Didn't you play a little bit with Riken earlier this year?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. I tried. I think I might have played like one online game with him, trying Black
Okay.
Admiral's List, but I've definitely seen him played more than uh, Garm and Medine and Draven and Dodana and Leia combined, and probably a few other Rebel commanders as well. So I would not say he's unplayed by any means.
Okay. I think I'm just living over in a pocket over here.
All right, well, yeah, you want to read us Agate?
Yeah. So Riken's an A tier, and then now we have got Krista Agate, 20 points. After you deploy, gain one non-scattered defense token. During your spend defense token step, if your speed is not 0, you may discard one defense token to resolve the effect of that token. You cannot resolve the effect of each type of defense token more than once per attack. So essentially, this works like you imagine your defense token got accuracy. You can just toss it instead to get the effect, which is super good, especially on ships that don't have ECM. When you couple this with Whale Explicics, it just makes something. You can put this on a Nebulon and make it super tanky. It's kind of wild, but a lot of fun. Tears to Agate was 20 points, and was the face of the rebel faction, if we're being honest, for a very long time, and she still is. Um, I would say out of the fleets I've faced, like 75% are Tears to Agate if they're rebel. Um, the other portions are usually Kraken, sometimes Akbar, and the other ones are just a mix. But maybe we'll take that down to 70%. Anyway, Tears to Agate is pretty exceptional because she makes one ship, whatever you have, exceptionally tanky and difficult to kill. Many times, Um, when I'm flying Kirsta, I'll be able to get away from something that I ought not to have gotten away from. Like, you can take a large base ship and just sit in the front arc of an SSD for 2 turns, take 2 hits, and then bounce, and you still might make it out alive. I'll have I have some other like anecdotes about using her, but she's one of the best commanders in the game just because of her tankiness level. The downside to her though is she doesn't do anything for the rest of your fleet, so she's just helping out one ship, making it exceptionally tanky. So it ends up being kind of like a points pinata. It is very difficult to take down. If there's exceptional firepower focused on your ship, then there is a chance it'll go down. Sometimes it does go down, but hopefully you get to trade something for it in the meantime and come out on top. But for me, I think she's an S tier commander. What do you think, Badger?
Yeah, she's S tier. Arguably one of the best commanders in the game. Uh, she, she's just so good. I don't think 5 points was enough. I think she should have at least been 30 points. And the way she fits into the rebel faction is just incredible. Because you see her on every tier of ship. You see her on MC30s, making Foresight impossible to kill. You see her on the potatoes, a medium ship. You see her on Liberties and Starhawks, two large ships. She's very versatile, and in a faction that's so complete, like the Rebels are, where they just have every tool imaginable. Um, you don't need a commander that uh, affects your fleet. You don't need a commander that necessarily makes your fleet better. You just need a commander that can help your flagship stay on the table. Your one ship that's going to be in there doing whatever you need it to do. And so, yeah, I think she's easily S tier.
There was a time when Agate was the best commander in the game. I don't know. I don't think that time is right now. She does do a lot, especially for every rebel large. Um, I mean, these guys have been talking about how like they're good on, or Agate is good on like all kinds of ships, but I think Agate is the reason that the Starhawk is good. Um, it's like you can fly the Starhawk with a different commander, but it's like why not Agate? Uh, the 5 point nerf really didn't do anything. Like she's still just as good as she was before. I think it's just kind of the meta that's shifted, or the fleets that I enjoy, or I guess how I value defensive tech that has adjusted my opinion slightly. Um, it is possible to kill an agate ship. Uh, it definitely doesn't make a ship as invincible as it used to feel like. Um, there are some ships, like if you put agate on your potato, the thing's never going to die. Um, but I mean, there are fleets that can drop a hawk even with 6 defense tokens. So I just have her in A tier. I think she's still really powerful, but I don't think that she's in the best.
There are ways to kill an agate pickle or agate potato, excuse me, and I'm looking forward to facing it in a tournament so I can show everyone how it's done.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, but that the evade is kind of the main differential, I guess. But yeah, you can kill any ship in the game. Nothing's invincible. Pun intended, like the invincible title. But
Nice.
yeah,
You had A tier, you said?
I just have her in A tier. I have a feeling it's going to be hard to argue that, so I can just go ahead and seat her in S.
You're doing a lot of concessions today, Bodie.
I know, I know. I knew when I made this list, you guys were not going to agree with a lot of it, especially when we get to the Empire.
I
But
really, I really can't wait to see where these stack up to other factions so that I don't know if we'll change our minds later and say, okay, wait, we need to adjust this guy down to another tier or something like that.
Mhm.
Well, we'll leave her in S tier for now. Up next, we have oh, 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 Leia Organa. Badger, you want to read that one?
Princess Carrie Fisher, Leia Organa, 28 points. When a friendly ship resolves a command by spending a command dial, if it is not resolved another command this round, it may resolve that command as if it had spent a matching token. If it does, that ship cannot resolve an additional command this round. Uh, it's kind of confusing. It's basically you get a free token once per round on every ship, but then if you do that, you can't uh, spend another token later on, basically, because you can only resolve that one. I don't remember if there's something with the wording of it may resolve that command as if it had also spent a matching command token, which lets you then spend a matching command token and double the command token bonus, if I'm recalling correctly. So basically, you can like confire, add a die, re-roll, and then re-roll an extra die or something like that. Um, that might not actually be true, and I might be thinking of something else. But yeah, I don't know. Um, she's not that good. I think I have her in C tier. Um, Now thinking about it a little bit harder, that might be a little generous. I guess my favorite thing about Leia Commander is that someone who went to Worlds last year brought his wife, and she dressed up as Izard one day, and then Izard from the card, and then Leia from this card another day, and I thought that was kind of cool. But I've never played Leia before.
Where's your Leia costume?
I do have a gold bikini, if that's what you're referring to. I
Oh
don't
my
have the
god.
Hoth outfit that she's wearing, so I'll send you some private pictures later.
Hell yeah. Um, I don't think that Leia is very good either. I'll just cut to the chase. I have her in D tier. Uh, you'll see as we go along with this series that I really value double dial commanders, and Leia does not let you do that. Uh, I think that you're probably wrong. I don't know for certain, but is you can only spend each token once, or like each you can only resolve each command once, and you can only do one dial and one token. Um, so you wouldn't be able to spend another token effect.
But you're not resolving another command, and you're not spending a second token because the wording is it may resolve that command as if it had also spent a matching token. So then you resolve her ability and you spend a token because you can spend a dial plus token together. So you're not spending multiple tokens and you're not resolving multiple commands.
But you are resolving multiple, or like you're resolving the same command with two token effects, which I guess was part of the disagreement with Draven's original card. So we can get someone who's actually a judge to answer
Judge,
that question.
Josh, you judged.
I did judge. What is going on? You said that it's two tokens?
He's saying that you can, because of Leia's wording as spending, you may resolve that command as if it also spent a matching command token. Um, that you could also spend the command token and get the token effect twice.
No, the correct answer is no, you cannot do that. It's a token, or you can just spin the dial and you get the effect of the token. Um, I don't know the reasoning why necessarily. I can look it up, but I know that's the correct answer.
You got me sold.
But all of that's to say, though, is I mean, she takes away your ability to have versatility, which I think is one of the worst sins that a commander can provide. Um, it is a little funny to like use her to stack up on engineering, but I'd rather like just have the engineering token already and then be able to engineer and spend a nav token or however it needs to be. I would literally rather have Garm. I feel like Garm gives you more versatility in your options than Leia, and I think Leia solid into D tier because of that.
Okay. So Leia Organa, I can't believe we're having to talk about this card so much. You when you're spending a command dial, you can only spend a token, like one token to go with it, and you cannot. There's no situation in which you can spend two tokens of the same type. So if you're
You're
going
not
to
spending
resolve the
two
command
tokens.
dial, okay, this is like
Hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I do just want to point out that if she was played more, we would all know the answer to this question. And I think that's the real gist of this
no, I
conversation.
I I'm
Okay,
correct.
I'm sure you are.
I'm correct. I know I'm correct. I just
That's the best kind of correct. You just trust the science.
I think I'm on the right track. You
Yeah,
cannot spend.
you're definitely correct. I'll pull up the rule book. Hold on.
All right, let me give my spiel about Leia Organa real quick. Leia Organa is something that uh, is kind of nice, but at the beginning of the game, what you do is usually take a couple tokens, and then you'll use those throughout the game when needed. So she kind of like acts as a boost to a lot of your smaller ships, lower command values, because then you don't need to have all the commands all over the place. You can just have the dial, and then you get the token effect as well. But it limits you, so you have to have ships dedicated to thing A or thing B. Like this ship is going to be shooting, and then I expect it to die, so I'm not going to do engineering, or I'll do one engineering later on and move shields around and then hope it survives. Or I've got this squadron pusher, and it's just going to push squads this whole game, and then you can throw one engineering in there to try and heal it up on its way out and try to survive. But a lot of times, you what happens is you'll want to do two things at once, but you can't if you want to get her effect. So a lot of times it's nice. Honestly, I think this commander should be probably like a 20-point commander, um, especially with things like parts resupply and munitions resupply out there, and Ahsoka Tano. There's a lot of things you can do with tokens to get what you want out of them. Um, the other thing is that she's kind of a soft counter to raid because you can throw command tokens around, hang on to them, and then use Ahsoka or use the correct token to get rid of the raid, and then use a full effect with a dial-in token with her ability. So she's like okay in general. If I were to fly her, something I would like to do is just take GR-75s with expanded hangar bays, and then like Nebulons with just naked Nebulons with auxiliary shield steam, and then just have like a large MSU with stuff like that that is taking minimal stuff and then trying to maximize the dial and token stuff that she puts out. In her current state, she's not taken, and she's I don't know she's not really even fun tier. I think she's too many points to be fun tier. If she was in the realm of like 25 points or less, then I could see her in fun tier. But I think she's in D tier at her current state. Badger, what do you have to say about this one?
I started with her. I put her in D or C tier. Um, yeah,
Oh, you started? Okay.
this is why we can't charge for the podcast, ladies and
And
gentlemen.
then Bodhi, you had her in D tier? Yeah.
Yeah, I have her in D tier.
I uh I think she belongs in D tier. Can we concede to D tier?
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I said I thought C was being
Mr.
a little
Badger. Okay.
generous. I do want
Okay.
a more qualified answer than and yeah, you do that. I don't know why, but you just can't. To the question of
All right. I might have that. So when you issue a command, you choose to do it with either the dial, the token, or the dial
Mhm.
plus token.
Right, and
And
you're just using a dial.
right, when Leia triggers, she only triggers if you spent
Where does
just
it
the
say
dial.
that? Because on her text, it just says when a friendly ship resolves a command by
It's on
spending
the
a command
card, right?
dial, not by only spending a command dial.
Right, right. But it's just one of those things like how does LTT
Well,
actually
it's
work?
been eroded and
It,
FAQ'd.
yeah. Well, actually, there are other people that have asked this question, and I was reading on one thread, and that was the answer, and now I'm reading on another thread, and people still don't have an answer.
Yeah,
So
I just posted the question. I haven't.
I don't know. Maybe you're
Yeah,
revolutionizing our model.
I can't remember where I heard this conversation. I definitely heard this conversation before in competitive setting where it was being discussed, and I may be wrong. I may have be misremembering or mishearing or whatever the case may be. But I'm pretty sure it works, and I haven't. I can't tell you why it doesn't work. Uh, it's one of those rules that it feels like it shouldn't, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we can move on, and if you get a rules response, then let us know. And anyone who's listening who already knows what the power of being in the future, then you can flame us in the
Flame on.
comments.
If it did work as if two tokens, like when you spent the token, I mean, that would be a bit more useful. But I still think
Slightly
she should be lowered in points. I don't think 28 is the right level for her.
agreed.
All
Uh,
right, it's a D
Finally, we
tier.
have yeah, D tier. Finally, we have Mon Mothma, or as I like to call her, Mom Mothma. When a friendly ship resolves an evade token effect, it can cancel one die at medium range or reroll one additional die at close range or distance one for 27 points. So Mom Mothma helms the greatest fleet that Armada has ever seen, and that is 8 CR90Bs with SW7s and 2 Z95s. And the Z95s are only there because you don't need like a 18-point bid. Uh, they also like play into your objectives a little bit or stop a single squadron alpha. But the important part are those 8 CR90Bs, all right? Think about any given list aside from the Superstar Destroyer and tell me what you would do into 8 CR90Bs. That's like guaranteed 6 damage if they have a double arc. And it takes at least a shot and a half to actually pop them. And if you don't pop them, they're going to run away at speed 4, never to be seen again. So is this good? Is it competitive? No, it's not. But every time I make a list, and every time I like travel to tournaments, my friends and I always joke about what do you do against Mom Mothma 8 CR90Bs? And if the answer is nothing, just cry, then I honestly like don't consider it as a competitive fleet. Uh, I know it's just it's a goofy thing. I've played it exactly one time when I was trying to figure out Vassal, but recently with the Gamers Guild restock, finally picked up the last couple of CR90s that I need, and one day soon I will be setting all of my accuracies to actual damage. It's going to be a glorious day. But all that being said, I don't think she's any higher than C tier. It's a fun list, and it's exactly that one list. Uh, there are some goofy things that you can do with Starhawks and the Amity title and some MC30s or something, but that's also just kind of a meme concept anyway. Very skew type list. Um, so I think she's a fun C tier commander. I think that while her ability is pretty practical, Kraken does it better, and Riken does it better, and Akbar does it better. Man, there's a lot of MSU commanders in this faction, and Mon Mothma just kind of ends up at the bottom of it. But I'm not quite the bottom. She's not Median bad. That's my Mon Mothma spiel.
Okay. I actually have her at B tier. And the reason is because, well, she is very good at MSU. She lets you get a lot of rerolls at close range. So while Kraken will let you streak around uh, and be survivable at long range, she actually helps you be more survivable at close range as well with the rerolls. And like the CR90Bs, I've flown a fleet with CR90Bs, not all of them, just a couple, and then like a Liberty or something. And actually, at close range, being able to toss and evade and reroll 3 dice is pretty crazy. If you can, I have been weirdly uh, very lucky lately with my rerolls, like in my favor from the enemy shooting me, and I have routinely like had people reroll multiple doubles into nothing, and I'm kind of leaning into that, and it's pretty nice. She's not as good as Kraken, and she's 1 more point. Um, but she is functional at speeds lower than 3, and that kind of comes into play whenever you're, let's say, flying a Nebulon. Uh, so you can fly a Nebulon at like speed 1, bank a nav token, and then hold on with your double braces in a front arc until you get close enough to jump around and try to leave the side, and then show your butt to them as you're trying to fly away. So the evade kind of helps that, but um, when you get closer in, it also helps. A lot of times people will try to get the second accuracy or try to work for it to try to keep you from bracing and then make you spend your evade, but uh, I don't know. I think I may be preaching too much into Nebulons because really just one accuracy makes you spend the brace and then never mind. Let's just move past that. Anyway, Mon Mothma is decent but not as good as Kraken. I think she's a B tier commander. What do you think, Honey Badger?
Yeah, I have her in B tier. She can be fun to play, I guess. If you want to play like Foresight comes to mind, just canceling a bunch of dice or affecting extra dice on top of the 2 that you already get to affect at close range, canceling at medium range. Um, but if you're doing Foresight, you're probably better off with Kraken, Riken, Akbar. So I think she really suffers from having being in a faction that has just too many better options. So B tier.
You know, uh, I'm gonna go ahead and use my poll on the last commander and just leave her in B tier. But I would actually like to rethink some of the commanders in the game and see if like some of them would work better in other factions. One of them, I think, with the rebels having 2 commanders that do something very similar to one another, with Kraken and Mon Mothma working with MSU. Um, I mean, the other time I've seen Mon Mothma was on a Starhawk, actually. Now that I remember. Anyway, weird, weird. Sidebar. Anyway, yeah, I think some commanders should be rethought, and maybe the text should be like given to another faction, and then rewrite some new text, something fresh.
I do wonder what the game would look like if you could have multiple commanders in your fleet. Um, Obviously on different ships, but like if you had, I don't know, 3 MC-30s and you had Akbar, Riken, and Kraken, or Akbar, Kraken, and Mon Mothma. Um, yeah, you've got almost 100 points in commanders, but uh, what would that look like?
It would look like a lot of Dooku and TF
Yeah,
1726.
that's true.
Yeah, that would be a fun little way to play Armada. Is just spend as many points as you want inside the faction and take whatever you want on any ship without restriction, and let's see what happens.
One last point on Mon Mothma before we wrap up is now with her in B tier. I think that the 8 CR90s really need to come out.
All right.
And because Drew and I did not use a poll today, that means we get to save it for future ones.
Oh,
I say
today? I thought we had one for like each each
no.
each call.
I say I say one poll for the whole commander list.
All right, we did not discuss this beforehand.
No, it's okay. Um,
Or we can do pull rollover. So
yeah,
now
yeah,
we
there we
just get
go.
an extra one in one of the future pods.
That makes a bit more sense and is a bit more fair. All right. Are we ready to move on to elevation?
Yeah, who wants to go first?
Odie.
I could go first.
Okay.
Um, so I've kind of been thinking a little bit about what I want to elevate, and I think I was kind of I wasn't the biggest proponent for Garm. Josh, didn't you have him in B originally?
Garm, I think so. Dude, I
Okay.
am I am like sleep deprived, and this whole episode has been kind of a shit show for me.
Well, as a Garm enjoyer, I'm gonna elevate him. Uh, I think the main issue kind of boils down to like when you need the tokens and the fact that you get them all at once, and a lot of ships just can't handle that. Especially a lot of the good rebel ships are all smalls. And so I think just adding the line of text that tokens gained this way can be taken like ignoring the command value of ships. I don't remember exactly how the few effects that we have in the game are worded, but just let all of the ships get all 4 command tokens, and then they wouldn't be able to gain any after that. You know what I mean? Like just let them get the whole boatload of tokens at one go. Is it really going to matter a whole lot that your CR90s all have an extra engineering token? But then for like the ships that really do care, then they just get to stock up, and uh, yeah, I think it would be a little more fun.
Okay. So you had Garm. I I really want to elevate Sato. I like playing with Sato, and I want him to be good, but he's just not. So, to elevate him, I think we should just take away the squadron. Uh, well, that might get a little hairy because then we'll get some all ship lists or squadron lists that are going to be kind of crazy. Imagine like 7 CR90Bs with HIEs and Sato. Actually, no, that doesn't make sense. God, you can really see my sleep deprivation coming through. Anyway,
CR90As.
CR90As. Yes.
Well, no, but then they can't take HIE. So.
Yeah. So just forget what I'm talking about. Anyway, I think he should be like 20 points. I think you take away the 7 points off of him, he becomes a little bit more viable, and then you can like mix him up and the fleet's a little bit better. Um, I don't really like the squadron thing because that means you have to like bank a token or something and then work it in. It just seems like it just doesn't feel super fun to play him. And especially while other stuff in the game allows you to just add dice in. I guess that is the downside of the trades. Oof. I need to get some sleep. We'll call this one just 20 points. That's what I'm gonna go for. Badger, what's your elevation?
So yeah, my elevation, I touched on earlier would be Sato. Some kind of extra ability to boost the squad game or something. I don't know. Maybe even enhance the flak of your ships, which wouldn't be that good, because you obviously want your ships shooting at their ships, but if you enhance the flak of your ships, then that'll help you clear out their squadrons. So I don't know that. Uh, maybe, yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. I do want to circle back real quick to Leia The thing I was thinking of was Old Draven, whose Draven's original text was basically whenever you reveal a command from Draven, whenever an opponent resolves a matching command, it resolves the dial as though it had spent a token of the same type instead. And so this was ruled, I remember several times saying that you could spin the dial and a token. So basically, your dial would be the token power, and then your token would be token. So it's kind of double token. So Old Draven is no more. It's gone by the wayside. But given those rulings, I could still see the logic of you're spinning a dial, you're getting Leia's commander ability, and you're spinning a token all in one command. But that's all I have to say about that.
All right. Well, if you guys want to follow along and do your own tier list, I encourage you to check the description or search on Google Star Wars Armada Commander tier list and make a tier list of your own, and then post it in the Discord in the pod discussion channel, and then we can compare and start a conversation over there. I gotta apologize for being like a little out of it today. I do think that all my picks have been like where I want them to be, but I just have been going going a little hard at work, I guess, and then losing a little sleep. But I
Listen,
hope you guys.
a sleep deprived episode of Speculation Station still cures the people's need to pitchfork.
Oh, that's true. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Catch us again next time on the Speculation Station. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.